I wanted so badly for everything to constantly be evenly busy, but not overwhelming, and never have downtime, but also never be drowning. And I had a coach that I spoke with twice a week and finally understood that that's just not how it's going to be. It's just not the real world. And I feel like that was probably somewhere around like year 3 or so, where I just was like, okay, this is just the life of a business owner and an entrepreneur and a very changing landscape. It's always changing, and that's accepting that was probably acceptance and just being present, enjoying what I do have, while still obviously like, planning for the future was personally for me like the game changer.
This is James Peterson. Welcome to the Business Blindsports podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders to learn from them about obstacles, roadblocks, and mistakes that they've made along their business journey, to learn from them going forward. Today's guest is Miss Colleen Fischer. She is a co-owner and producer of Genius House Media. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, James.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Can you start us off by just giving us kind of an overview of who you are, your journey, where you come from, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I have been co-owner of Genius House Media. We're a video production shop for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Before that, I was mainly in marketing, communications and marketing. So what I've ended up doing at Genius House is mostly more business development and, scripting, messaging, and producing and organizing things and that kind of thing. How far back? I went to Ohio State. I'm a Buckeye for communication, and I'm originally from Ohio.
Nice.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing this year?
I mean, we're usually doing pretty well. The Buckeyes are, yeah. I think we're 5 or something like that right now. But
Still need to brag. I think TCU's number 85 this year so far, but it's still early in the season, so we'll see where it goes. So what was your first job out of college?
My first job was public relations manager, or probably coordinator, at the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So I did PR and communications and a little bit of marketing kind of work for a wonderful nonprofit granting wishes to children with life-threatening medical conditions. And that was a pretty solid foundation, working in nonprofit, because you really are feet on the ground, doing everything, dealing with media. Everybody is needed in the nonprofit world. So had a really, really wonderful boss there who really has been a lifelong mentor for sure. She's still a friend of mine. In fact, after we left that position, we left together and started our own little firm, and she still runs it today. And that was probably 20 years ago.
Was it a marketing firm?
Yeah. She still does a lot of press, PR kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a marketing firm in
Nice.
Columbus, in Ohio.
So what made you want to leave your job and go start a business?
That was around the time that my husband got a job here in Fort Worth. And so we left Fort Worth, and I actually started working. I worked at an ad agency first in Dallas, and that was really far. I didn't realize what a pain that was. So that didn't last very long, probably 6 months or so. And then I actually worked for a small social media agency here in Fort Worth, as well as United Way of Tarrant County, and also did a lot of kind of solo work. So my husband was working in video production here. The job he got here was in kind of like the medical education industry. And I'm working in marketing in different roles. And we both kind of realized that there was a big need for not just these gigantic productions, not just these huge commercial, Super Bowl, huge budget types of content, but a lot of consistent quality digital content. And so we started Genius House together in 2013, and he was a production manager there. So we actually ended up hiring someone from his former staff before. They make a great team, and we kind of just went from there.
Did you do a lot of market research before you started the business?
I definitely think definitely did market research, of course. Google searching who's around competitors locally, who's doing well in maybe kind of smaller cities like a Fort Worth, or maybe mid-tier cities. But we also just had a very lucky break where when he was working for this company, he was taking on other clients, and through me, he got introduced to someone with a very big, with Dickies, really big, the clothing company. And so we started out in a very unique position where he did some work for Dickies. They were really impressed. And we ended up with series of 6 videos that we were doing for them. So it wasn't the big, scary jump like it is for a lot of people. We had a partner and somebody that was going to be really good for our portfolio. So while we still did, we still were like, okay, are we really doing this? Because we had only dabbled in entrepreneurship before. We really were lucky in the way we were able to get started.
So I think that would come with its own set of challenges, right? Versus, bootstrapping a startup, wondering where the next payroll is going to come from, wondering how you're going to keep the lights on, where you were just immediately in bed with a huge client from the start, right?
We were, for sure. And we did have that feeling after that 6-project contract ended of, oh, what now? Now we got to figure out how to really sell ourselves. The executive that we worked with there left and went somewhere else. So we didn't really have our connection there anymore. So we really had to be like, okay, we know we're not going to just jump on with another Dickies, So we started small and started with local nonprofits and started really like kind of almost not starting over, but we had that experience and that was really helpful for us. But we knew we couldn't get too egotistical and think that we were just going to land all these big clients from there.
So what did that planning process look like as you're wrapping up with Dickies and you're looking at like, okay, we have our niche, right? So how did the marketing plan go? And so it sounds like the business development kind of fell on you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was always kind of the plan for me to be business development. I was really, really involved with what doesn't exist anymore, but was called the Social Media Club of Fort Worth. I made a ton of connections with them. And that's really how it was, fully word of mouth. I can't say that we had this marketing plan. We weren't spending money on anything other than networking and events and things like that. We did go to one trade show, which we actually went with Dickies, where we really practiced our pitch because it's called the OR show, Outdoor Retailer Show, and they have the Patagonias all the way down to the brand new smaller companies. At the time, Harimari was a really small company. We met them there. It didn't necessarily turn into anything, but we realized, okay, so now let's maybe like kind of narrow this down to apparel. We have Dickies. We've done this with Dickies. Let's think about who we could go to that is apparel. And so we really kind of started to focus in on that, which we now have a pretty decent size portfolio of apparel brands. That's a really good one for video production because they are seasonal. So they always need new content. So next month or at the end of this month, we're going to the spring summer shoot with one of our clients. And then in March, we'll go to the fall winter shoot, and they're always, a season ahead. And filming content for them.
Where do you film your content? You have a studio? Do you do outdoor shoots, locations?
For this particular one that we do twice a year, it's always outdoors. So this one will be in Palm Springs at the end of this month for spring, summer, because they just want sunshine. Sometimes they go somewhere beachy. We've done them in Santa Monica. And then for fall, winter, it's usually, and we've done one in upstate New York and several of them in Colorado. and they just want they want a little bit of snow, but not much. And they want maybe a little bit of color on the trees. So that's we don't select the locations. They have a production company that does that, but that one is always a challenge for fall winter.
So what would you say was your number one challenge in your first year starting out?
First year starting out was definitely major imposter syndrome, major, like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. We really just kind of had to brush that off and keep going and figure it out. But I also was really careful to not pretend like I knew what I was doing, and sometimes just be honest and say, okay, we haven't done that before, but let's figure this out, and we're going to make it happen. And we have folks that we can talk to and get advice from. But that's kind of like, I think on a personal level, as far as like in my head was, oh my gosh, like, I didn't really come from video production. I came from marketing. So as far as like logistics wise, I think we were a little, the first year, shy about, the things like proposals and estimates and getting paid on time. That was out of character for me to be like, closing the deal, let's do this, or this is past due, where is it, and that kind of thing. That over the years became much, much easier because I know,
pay me.
Yeah, I know the value, and I know when everything's due, and I know how hard we worked. And so I would imagine that's something that a lot of people maybe experience in the first year is just, oh my gosh, that's not I don't know what I'm doing. It's just the imposter syndrome of, do I really deserve this? Like,
I think that ties in with the phrase "fake it till you make it," which I heavily disagree with.
Yeah.
Especially if you're taking money for a service. And also, it's a very common thing with young entrepreneurs, and maybe not young, but newer entrepreneurs, very quick to sell themselves short, especially their price point, collections, demanding, knowing their worth and asserting their value that they're bringing to the table. So now, did you take... so you recognize the imposter syndrome. Now, did you take active steps to kind of get around that and overcome that challenge?
I mean, every book I could pick up, we went to a really great, I guess it was like a workshop, and my partner, my husband, he had been working in production for, 5 years at this point. So he was along with me, but because of what he had done before was probably a little bit more informational, we wanted to learn more about story. And especially at that time, with what we had done with Dickies, it was like that maker video stuff. So it's like, go out and find this really cool guy who's been wearing Dickies for years, and his dad wears them, his dad's dad wore them, and they're so reliable. And but okay, how do we make this a story? So he's a really cool knife maker, and but so he knows the technical thing, but the arc of everything, and the build up, and of course he's got the angles and that kind of thing. So we went to a really great workshop. It was really small. They were traveling around the country. They had made a documentary, found them, started following them, and they were very focused on that content. So we learned a lot from them in person at their workshop, and then they have online courses and books and handbooks and things like that. But we also didn't want to just stick with this one, resource. So obviously there's tons out there, and there's also your own style that you don't always want to be fully inspired by someone else. So I mean, we're very versatile, and we still are to this day. But we started to kind of embrace what we did best, which for me, my favorite part of it, and this might not be for everyone, is really, really getting to know people that I interview, kind of getting past, so you're doing a testimonial, getting past like, oh, this product is just the best thing on earth, but like, okay, why, and how did it solve your problem? And our nonprofit work, of course, is a little bit more makes a little bit more sense for that. But I mean, I can't say that I took deliberate steps because I still feel it to this day, but 10 years in, I still do. But I think just knowing that other people felt it and continuing to educate myself every possible way I could.
Education is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many. I mean, there's so many resources for.
I know people that have been doing their job for 10 years and they still have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
So imposter syndrome doesn't just go away naturally.
No.
You have to take action, whether it's educate yourself or become the best in your space.
Yeah.
You have to do something.
And I think that I think I saw a quote somewhere that said the wrong people have imposter syndrome or something like that. Like if you're not questioning things a little bit, you might be maybe a little too egotistical or something.
Yeah. It's I know people who to double down on that could use a bit of a imposter syndrome case.
Yeah.
We spoke to someone recently who is very accomplished and professional, and one thing that they talked about was imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty common across the board.
Yeah.
But,
And I think maybe the most intentional part of that is figuring out what I knew we were really good at and following that. Figuring out like, okay, we have some really, really happy customers with this type of video. Let's keep doing that. And I guess the sort of niche comes naturally from that, while of course still trying to learn new skills, but also just taking advantage of the market and our skill set.
Yeah, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
Right.
So when people married or non-married, just regular partners, do business together in partnerships, there's usually someone that we'll call the good idea fairy, who just, let's go do this, let's go do that, when it may or may not make business sense. So do you guys have that in your partnership? And is it you or is it your husband?
Well, actually, we call it the genie. And by the way, the genius house name is very sarcastic. No, we don't think we're geniuses at all. But
you ruined my joke later. I was gonna. Okay, good to know.
No, we definitely. It started as a full joke. We're very sarcastic. It's humor every day in our office and our shoots as much as possible. That to answer that question, the genie, the actual word genius comes from the word genie, and when the genie enters a room, it's like that fleeting moment when you have an idea and you're like, this is it, you know. I think I'm probably that, but I think we're both that, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I could say it's really one or the other. He has really, really amazing ideas for our videos. I have probably the crazier ideas for our company.
How do you guys handle conflict?
What I say about owning a business with your spouse is that is the most amazing thing on earth, and also the worst thing on earth. But the funny thing is, the first probably 5 years, I was like, we cannot talk about work all the time outside of the office. And then I realized we don't have kids, and I realized that this is probably like having a kid. I'm sure all parents talk about
baby.
And I'm sure all parents talk about their kids all the time, even though they don't want to because they're at dinner. And so I feel like embracing that was really helpful. But as far as conflict, to be totally honest, if this is something that if it has anything to do with on a shoot, we're on set, it's up to him. He's the director.
It's his lane.
It is, yeah. And I'm the producer, so I'm just solving problems and making everyone comfortable. If it is about the company overall, there's no one who gets to have the say. It is discussion. It is, let's argue. Let's think about it. Let's stop. Let's not make the decision right now. Let's table it and come back to it. Let's research, just continue the conversation or the argument. But yeah, I mean, I had to delineate, like, okay, the set is his. If I'm definitely going to tell him my opinion and he can take it or leave it. And that has been really helpful as far as conflict, because it can get really stressful, especially if you're filming, there's multiple things going on, there's multiple people to deal with, there's almost always limited time, and so it's stressful. So that I think is a helpful thing to just say, that's why there's a director, it's their call.
So that's really interesting. So I've never heard of a business partnership where someone doesn't have like the controlling vote. Even if it's 50-50, someone usually has veto power. So that's interesting. I imagine that's led to some pretty fun discussions, conversations.
As far as when, like, not on set, you mean about the business, or you mean
about the business and trying to hash out direction to go and decision points, I would imagine.
Well, also I think I've noticed, and it might just be more my style anyway, but when you have multiple people or you have the veto and you're working on an edit, A, you're going to slow everything down, and B, our employees are going to sense the conflict, and I never ever want to have any sort of toxicity or who do I ask about this, or I do think of my role as to support and make everyone it's not to make everyone happy, to make everyone comfortable, in the office, on shoots, my clients for sure. That is probably one place where we do have, like, he's a lot of times in the work and I'm kind of looking out for the client, and I'm like, no, we need to change that, not because of my creative opinion, but because of my that's my role.
So you're a bit of a client advocate in the
for sure. Yeah.
The functionality of the business.
We're a small business, so I am business development. I am definitely like the account person, as far as not accounting, but as far as like face with the client, kind of like the advocate for the client, but also making it so that they don't have to talk to our editors and that kind of thing. So, and I will say also, we have a lot of long-term partners, so everything is pretty smooth and efficient. Like we've had, we were at a shoot this morning for a client that we've had for 6 years. They didn't need us. They didn't need to be in the room when we were doing interviews. They didn't need, oftentimes when we deliver things, they're like, you nailed it. You knew exactly what we want because we've been doing this so long. That's helpful. I don't know that I could be all of that if we had new clients twice a month, constantly, needing to understand the process and that kind of thing.
So one more question about partnerships. So have you guys had, I know you mentioned leaving work at work, but have you had to set a little bit of parameters and boundaries within your marriage as far as, hey, let's maybe crack a bottle of wine and put work aside?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That seems critical, right?
It is. And actually, I'm fine with talking about work as long as it's not complaining. And we both will say, it's just the typical boundaries with everything in life. I'll say, okay, if you need to vent about that, we can do it for 5 minutes, so we're not going to do it all night, And same with him. If he's like, tell me about how that went. And then, once we are done with the cocktail and we're having dinner, then we're going to stop talking about it,
Permission to vent is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you got 5 minutes? Because let me just get this out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started off with Dickies and then things kind of just got off to a 60-mile-an-hour start, and then they went back down to 35 miles an hour, and you had to build out your client portfolio. At what point, if there was a point, did you realize, okay, hey, we're actually kind of doing this? Like, we're there. We're a thriving small business.
I can't really name a point because I felt like that kind of came in waves. But I do remember having a moment where I actually had a business coach for myself because I wanted so badly for everything to constantly be evenly busy but not overwhelming, and never have downtime but also never be drowning. And I had a coach that I spoke with twice a week, and finally understood that that's just not how it's going to be, and it's just not the real world. And I feel like that was probably somewhere around like year 3 or so, where I just was like, okay, this is just the life of a business owner and an entrepreneur and a very changing landscape, the digital, content, social media, is it long form? Is it landscape? Is it, it's always changing. And accepting that was probably acceptance and just being present, enjoying what I do have, while still obviously planning for the future, was personally for me like the game changer of this is how we're gonna get by.
So I am a huge advocate of business coaches and executive coaches. Can you talk about that experience for a little bit?
Sure.
What was that like for you?
It was really valuable for me. I'm always trying to learn from other people. Mm-hmm. This was the first time I had really done it intentionally. He had started the company Death to Stock. Have you ever heard of that? It's a stock photo company, but very, very different than...
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was my coach.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Tony?
No.
You're not talking about Tony Ford?
David something, and David Sherry.
I thought you were talking about Tony Ford that did the film business.
This was a photo. So at first, the way it started out is you could sign up for the newsletter and get packs of stock photos for free. And it was a community of creators. And this is quite a long time ago. It's evolved into something else. He's no longer a part of it, or he sold it or whatever it was. So there's a different kind of framework for it now. But I met him through that because I was just getting these, images to use for social media or something. And then I emailed him about something he had written in the newsletter. And then I found out he was going to be at South by Southwest Interactive. And then I met him there. So we had coffee there. And I really just was like, this guy is just had this like calmness to him, this wisdom. And I was like, let's do this coaching thing. So we worked with a handbook. He really just gave me I can't even describe the strategy or how he did it, but he gave me this peace of mind that as long as, I'm moving forward and I'm not I remember feeling stuck at that time, feeling just stuck on but he gave me the peace of mind that this is just this is what the life is, he really got me to move out of that stuck place that I felt like I was in.
That's why you pay them. And that's business coaches and mentors, I think, are invaluable to people within that stuck space, especially if you're dealing with someone who's already built it. I have a pet peeve, and that's coaches who are coaching something they've never done. So I hate when I see people who are trying to sell a coaching program and they've never built or sold a business. They've never built and failed at business, so they don't know what's right and what's wrong. They just attended a coaching course and now are selling themselves as something.
100%. I know what you mean about that. Yeah.
No offense to anyone who does that, but so do you have any books that you read along your journey that were really impactful in business for you?
I'm reading a book right now. Of course, whatever book I'm reading at the time is going to move me, but it's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, music producer.
Jay-Z's guy.
Also, how gorgeous is the cover?
It's beautiful.
It's just, I got it from the library, but I'm going to be returning that and buying it. It's a keeper. Make notes in it. It's not a really advice as it is more, I keep making it sound like I have no confidence in myself, but a lot of people are like...
You're coming across as extremely confident.
Okay, really good.
Yeah.
Because it's about how everyone is an artist, no matter if you're actually creating something and putting it out there, or just the way you solve problems or the way you talk to people. I hesitate. Somebody called me an artist once, or somebody called me a filmmaker once. I'm like, I don't operate the camera. I might hold it once in a while, but that has been really speaking to me. I just have read not even, I mean, it's not like one you pick up and just read it all the way through. You read it occasionally for inspiration and but anyway, that's the one right now. I remember back when I was doing more, when we first started out, I was doing social media for a few different clients. So I was writing content and creating posts and that kind of thing. I would read a ton of Gary Vee and or Gary Vandershek, and it's been a long time for those, but don't include those.
It doesn't. I don't really. I mean, Gary Vee's good for a startup.
Before he was Mr. Inspirational Guy, he was all about social media.
And before that, he was all about sales,
wine sales.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I saw him with Social Media Club Fort Worth. We had him come to.
Oh wow.
Well, not Fort Worth. He came to Dallas, but it was like a joint event. So he spoke and we met him and he signed a book. And so of course I was, hooked at that point.
Speaking of Rick Rubin, did you watch this documentary on HBO?
Absolutely will.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Now. I mean,
it's on Max.
Yeah. Okay. I have it. I'm going to watch it tonight. Yeah. Actually, after my mockumentary that I watched tonight. I don't know if you heard me telling Chris. But.
Well, let's talk about it. Throw it out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's a big joke, really. But so for our 10-year anniversary, we partnered with our friends at a brewery here, Martin House Brewing, and they made us a beer. And so we decided, also their 10-year anniversary this year. And so we decided I've always wanted to work on something funny. And the only other time we've done that is a video for them, probably 8 or 10 years ago. And so Adam and I went to the bar near our office and wrote everything out about this mock documentary that we were going to create about how the Genius House team went about trying to convince Martin House to make us a beer. And it gets real silly. It's just ridiculous. It's 10 minutes long, and tonight
Is it going to be on YouTube?
It will eventually.
After you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now we need to find some stock music because we're using, real songs at the moment, but for the private viewing with the guys, but but yes, it will be, and we have a bloopers reel, and so it'll be out there soon.
Is that the favorite thing you've done?
No.
What's the favorite project you've worked on and why?
I'm gonna put that into a few different categories. So there's one favorite on where we've been, because with our client US Polo ASSN, we have been to some really amazing locations, and we got to go to Buenos Aires, Argentina with them, and that was one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. We were on a polo field, during a match, and also we were out in the neighborhoods with models speaking Spanish, and it was just incredible. So that was location and also just beautiful content. People, getting to know people is my one of my favorite parts of this job, and we work with the Warm Place, which is a grief facility for families who have lost someone, for kids who have lost a sibling or a parent and their families. And we film with them for their impact video every year. And every year I get the honor of getting to know the most amazing families. And we spend multiple days with them, filming them, interviewing them. And it's just a beautiful experience for me, and a reminder of hug your people and enjoy your life. And so that's the people. And then I guess the other one would just be beautiful content, just gorgeous content, and that is also with US Polo ASSN, and they are the clothing side, and so we get to go to some beautiful locations, work with their photography team, and shoot some of the most gorgeous content that is in our library. So the 3 categories, but yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I've never been to Argentina. I would love to go. I want to go
back. But then you got to go to like Brazil, and there's also a place in Argentina. Oof, I'm not going to be able to think of it, but it's one of the wonders of the world, and it's all of these gorgeous waterfalls.
Oh wow.
And it's absolutely sick. And so while we were there, we popped over there for just for fun. And that's another nice thing about owning a business with my husband, is that when we're somewhere cool, we can spend an extra day or two and enjoy it. Versus if you're alone, you might enjoy exploring by yourself, but a lot of times you just want to go home and get back to your family. But we've been able to take advantage of that. And
Well, if you ever go to Patagonia, let me know. I will take off of work.
yes, yeah.
Bring my laptop. I'll be your prop guy. I'll carry your bags.
Perfect.
It's
The funniest thing about that is when we were in Buenos Aires, there's a guy, a local guy there who was like, Christmas is coming up and we're all taking a trip to Patagonia. Do you want to stay? And Christmas was literally like a week ago. Stay and come with us. We're like, could we do that?
Yes, the answer is yes.
People who know their way around and what to do out there.
Once in a lifetime.
We should have done it.
Should have done
We
it.
should have done it. Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm going to air this episode now that you said you didn't go.
just
I'm
maybe-
so let down. Why did you bring it? Okay, so what are you struggling with now? Like, what are the obstacles and barriers? Now that you've been doing this for a decade, you're a seasoned, salty business owner, right? That's a marine term. You're salty. That's a good thing. You've seen some stuff, right?
I think the thing that on my mind that I am maybe struggling with is, and this is something we learned in the 10K program, is the exit strategy. What do we do with it? So we're not trying to exit anytime soon, but I do.
But you will eventually.
Yeah, it's a very physical job, and my knees hurt from carrying cases around. And so how do we transition that to, maybe not being as much into the operations? We don't have kids. I don't have, so we've been thinking a lot about that lately. And we've been talking to our advisor about that. And we're just now really starting that conversation, and it overwhelms me at times.
That would be very overwhelming. I mean, if you still want to maintain ownership, I mean, you have to be bringing someone along in the pipeline who understands the business like you, who already you'll be able to easily transfer over client relationships with. And that's not something you do in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a pipeline, like special forces type stuff, where you have to go check all these boxes.
Get someone else to be salty.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's been on my mind a lot. It's in our conversations a lot. And we have a lot of ideas of, I wouldn't say big changes to the company, but other ways to have income but still be in the same line of business. And, I mean, the other thing is there's a lot of production companies opening up every day around here, around DFW, around everywhere. So that's another thing that we think about. I mean, it doesn't worry me because I know we have a solid experience and pipeline of partners, but it's something to think about as far as that long-term, not the exit strategy as much, but the value of our business. And what if there's a whole bunch more of them, or what if AI starts doing it all and that kind of thing. So, you know what? I actually am not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think it's
Why'd you ask me that?
fascinating. I mean, there's so much going on with AI. I mean, we see new social media accounts. They're not even real people, and they're still, it seems like a lot of the still photos have kind of gotten past that uncanny valley, so to speak, where now it's really hard to tell. It's probably easy for you because it's your industry. But so I wrote down a question. So Fort Worth, 12th largest city in the nation, growing very rapidly, and our growth hasn't slowed down since it ramped up right when COVID has happened. So have you seen the landscape of business changing around you? Is it harder to get clients? Is it harder to keep clients? Are you getting shopped around from a price point perspective? What are you seeing?
I haven't seen a change. We have about like 50% of our business is local, and most of the ones that we do have are repeat. They're coming back to us. But what I will say about that, about the growing city, about this development is, well, I used to kind of be embarrassed. I used to want to say that we're from Dallas. That's something that like people will probably be really upset about if I said, but that was also when I was newer. I've learned how important it is to A, love my town, and B, I look around and I'm inspired by so many entrepreneurs and business owners who are, I could name friends or people who I just admire in this town who are doing things that make me dream big. That, we live here in the near South Side, and it is just such a vital and beautiful area, and everybody is really supportive. And we do definitely, of course, have competitors, but I feel very confident that there's enough business to go around in this community that is growing so much.
It's astounding how much it's growing. And also one thing that they're doing well is they're fostering entrepreneurship here. Their Tech Fort Worth, the stuff that Cameron Cushman's doing. He's got his own entrepreneurial incubator. Do you know Cameron?
No, that name sounds familiar, but
he works with Next out of UNT Health Science Center. They have an entrepreneurship incubator, and he's amazing. And he moved from DC back to Fort Worth, and he brought all that energy with him. I don't know if that's okay to say in Fort Worth. I might get fired, but
that's okay. I admitted that I
it.
wanted to say I was from Dallas when we first started, and I feel like that will also.
Well, when I'm outside of DFW, I say DFW.
Yeah.
Right? Because
yes, exactly.
When you go to LA and you say you're from Fort Worth, they're like, okay, so you have like horses at gas stations. I'm like, no, the Fort Worth Metroplex is enormous.
Yeah.
And it takes you an hour to get from here to there sometimes. You know
what's crazy is, if I can keep talking, is we had some folks from LA that we were working with, more photography side, and they also worked with Dickies, and they would come into town, and they were like, we love Fort Worth. We want to get out of LA. We love Fort Worth. We can see how it's like the next thing. It's it's cooler than Austin and blah, blah. It was so awesome to hear that. And they're forever LA people. I thought that was really cool. That was years ago too.
I tell people, if you want to get out of California and you want to stay in California, just move to Austin.
Right.
If you want to, yeah,
Uber
they do.
there.
Yeah, they're Uber drivers, and they tell you how amazing LA is, and you ask them to move back. But, anyways, I'm only teasing. Texas loves everybody. So, let me wrap this up with a question. 10 years. Started it, grew it, you're maintaining it, you're focusing, you're starting to think on an exit while continuing your brand. If someone is getting ready to start their journey, or they're within their first 3 years, what piece of advice should they take from you? What lesson should they learn from your experience that's going to help them on their journey? It's not like the most solid, like here, do this and this, but have a balance of confidence and humility, and keep them both, because humility will allow you to make mistakes and learn from them, and go use resources like mentors or people who may have advice for you and may not. But humility allows you to listen, and the confidence will allow you to just keep going, keep moving forward. That isn't like if you want solid advice, it's find a that
really
wasn't
good,
solid advice you just gave. It sounded solid.
That sounded a little self-helpy, but as far as like start with a really good accountant. It's a pain to go back and change those things later on down the road. Legitimately use the business plan, like have it all, have a plan to also be ready to change it, here and there and adjust. But yeah, I think for me, that has been, my mindset has been the most important thing, of having a little bit of both of those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what my biggest takeaway is?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I love what you said about imposter syndrome. I think that the fact that you recognized that imposter syndrome was a thing with you, and you kind of leaned into it, and then you mentioned that you kind of still deal with it every now and then. I think that's brilliant, and people need to understand that sometimes it's just a thing, and you're just going to have to deal with it. It's never going to go away. There is no fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to learn the business and lean into it.
And if you don't have a touch of imposter syndrome, you might be a bit of a know-it-all. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it means you're not trying to learn and grow, you know?
Yeah, which is key.
Yeah.
You've been a great guest.
Thank
you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We will put all of her contact information in the show notes. If you want to hire them or reach out to her with more questions, feel free to contact her. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely.